Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propaganda Review with me, your host, Imperial Dane. And as you might be noticing, the game I'm reviewing today is Total War Attila. Dun, dun, da. Hordes of Huns rampaging through Europe, all that stuff. And I'm sure you're all curious, what do I think of this game? Well, you know, let's have a look at sort of what you got. I mean, you got prologues, you got multiplayer games, of course, you got the grand campaign. I haven't tried the prologue, though, probably a tutorial, and, well, I pretty much know Total War at this point. There might be a few new additions, but overall, nothing big. Now, what's really interesting, of course, is, you know, all the factions. And, you know, compared to some of the previous Total War games in the later years, I mean, there's a greater difference between it all. And they've certainly done a bit sort of differentiate them. You got sort of larger cultures and then minor faction. All the culture, of course, share traits. For example, here you got the barbarian kingdoms. They will have these sort of building conversion rates. That is, for example, you know, you as the Franks, you know, grab a Roman town, you have to convert it to the building, it's going to happen a lot bloody faster. For example, then you got the more specific ones, for example. Some of them, though, are more useful than others. I mean, we can, for example, you know, grab the Norsemen. You got the Danes here. And, for example, you know, this one, well, considering most of the battle happens on land, you know, this is a rather limited one as an example. Just saying, whereas compared to, say, for example, the Eastern Empires, which, for example, you know, can gain a lot of income out of this gainings, as an example, or some other ones. I mean, there's a lot there to really, you know, get into. But of course, there are also, you know, differences between them. I mean, larger differences between the different, you know, factions and cultures. Some are more migratory. There, of course, they move about, secure territory that way. Some can sort of shift between them. Believe it, the Huns are completely nomadic. They can't settle down. These ones start out as mobile, these are as static. The Norsemen, by the way, can also go into migratory. And again, you might ask, well, what's that about? I'll try and show you. Haven't really bothered much for that because, well, I was playing the Danes, I was playing the Romans, because, you know, that's a lot more fun than, you know, riding around on horseback, as far as I'm concerned. But already there. And note, though, also, the Norsemen are part of a pre-order bonus. So just a quick note there, unless you pre-ordered, of course, you have to purchase the game now, you have to purchase them afterwards. I don't think it'll be expensive, and they're adding even more armies. For example, the day this video comes out, I believe they're adding another 3 sort of playable there with a lot of, you know, new content as well. And they're certainly doing a lot sort of diversify units also compared to some of the previous Total War, where there was a lot more overlap between the different armies, by the way. So, I mean, you got a lot there to go with in essence. If you will, let's, you know, grab some Ostrogoths here. Sort of show some bits here. You got the lovely. You get sort of a mix here, though. These little bits here, you know, where they're quoting someone, there'll also be bits on the screen, you know, saying, well, this is this and that is that. You get a nice little intro sequence here. I'll just skip that because you don't need to see that. Well, you do, but, you know, when you're playing it, because that's a bit more fun then. Got a bit there of talky. And then you got your huge, well, part of your empire right here. And migratory basically means your army is your town as well. I mean, that's really one of the many new concepts to Total War that Attila brings. But overall, these armies, so, you know, move about, but they're also armies. So basically, if you lose an army, well, you lose a town as well. So in that regard, you have some things there to be worried about. You also need to sort of sell them to, well, get anything out of them. So that is also a vital little thing there to keep in mind. I mean, otherwise, it's, you know, a bit like the previous ones. You know, you upgrade. There's paths there where you can sort of take them. What do you want to get from them? And so on. You got your units. Mind you, of course, you need general section of armies. You can't, for example, just raise an army without a general. No, you need to sort of get one. You've got your little family trees as well. That's a bit something that's, you know, getting back here. I mean, that guy, you know, that's also one of the things about Attila Total War. A lot of the stuff that, well, previously wasn't rare. You know, a lot of the, you know, the meat on the campaign side, you know, it's getting back. You got family trees, which do add a lot more. You now, for example, got politics as well. You got sort of governments, you know, family. Do you have power there? But also usually some kind of entity. They keep in the Senate. tribal chiefs or something else, usually controlled for that, that overall then sort of shows how much power do you have over the faction. In that regard, there's a lot of management actually going on, which is quite fun. You have to manage your general's influence versus your king's or emperor's influence. Family has to be managed as well, wives, children, all that. Illegitimate children as well, and then you got all of this, you can hand out posts, which is also something that's been rather lacking. I mean, that's something, I mean, there's been a bit of it back in some of the, well, more recent games, but nothing more serious. I mean, it's really sort of back in the old Total War, the first medieval, I really remember it was something, more extensive, so there's also that, which also grants influence, and influence is also a resource, for example, for doing a lot of things, adopting someone, making sure the other one's less popular, gaining control over the group, gaining money if you need that, divorcing, and of course having someone murdered. So in that regard, there's a lot to the game, which is overall pretty fun, and overall gives you something more to sort of handle between battles. I mean, something I personally felt, in the recent Total War games, it was a bit too focused on the battles, and even then, not enough. I mean, there was a lot of meat lacking here and there, but now there's a lot more to manage. You can have integrities of your armies to manage. That is, if they become too low, you might actually risk them splitting off. So, for example, also got to deal with that, in which case you've got options, for example, like decimating, which is, as those who might know, involves killing about 10% of everybody. Armies got traditions, can use sort of different bonuses. Characters as well, they have these skills, they get traits, these, and then you got some households. There's a lot more to it overall, and that's already sort of one of the, how should I say, major improvements of Attila compared to, previous games in the Total War series. And overall, I find there's really a lot. You still got research, which of course some the old Total War games didn't have, but overall, it's about 2 branches here. You can gain bonuses, and there's usually also a bonus sort of filling up one part of it. All in all, so that's also pretty neat. But nothing huge. You've got objectives here, sort of sub-objectives, sort of neatly lead in. You complete these sub-objectives, and when the main objective is done, which is mostly for everybody, it's just meaning, survive until this year, rather ominously. In particular, if you're maybe the sort of West Roman Empire, well, great, thanks! But of course, you got these sort of more specific victory objectives: minor victory, military victory, cultural victory, divine triumph. So in that regard, there's a lot more to the game that way. You've even got this large screen where you can, for example, get an entire look of it. There's a lot to it, as you might notice. Huge provinces, and usually 3 territories then make, 1 province. Some are desolate. Initially, some are desolate because, they get burned down, and that's one thing I definitely have to tell you over here. Expect a lot of things to be burned down. Really, there's some people who really like to burn cities down. I mean, it's practically exterminatus, which is, pretty neat. Of course, there's also, downside to that. For example, if you're the one with the kingdom and not the migrator, because then there's been refugees, which is, of course, another thing. I mean, there's a lot more to it again. There's a lot more meat, and overall, the challenge level is, so much higher. You're actually being challenged. Your AI opponent, for example, is, a man who clearly can't even control his own rule. I mean, you have to sort of manage how they yield their armies. You have to sort of combine your armies, otherwise, they can easily be overwhelmed. So again, there's a lot more to it. I found myself using a lot more of the different parts of the game. Forced marches, setting up fortifications, all that. I mean, I really had to enjoy that, being challenged. So overall, I mean, again, to a certain extent, I mean, I also have to put it more simply, Attila Total War has a lot more to do with the older Total War games. Again, Medieval 1, Medieval 2, I mean, the good Total Wars. Plus, it's also not really buggy compared to the other ones. Mind you, I have heard some people have been able to play the game. Apparently they are patching up, but there are some people who for some reason can't get it to work. So, just heads up there. I mean, there are some problems. But overall, me, who could get it to play, surprisingly problem-free. No crashes, no turns that take about 10 minutes to go through. All that. None of that, in fact, for me, which is pretty damn good as well. Overall, you also have a sort of larger spread of units, not more unique units. Over that way, it's not just everybody who just so happen to have the same guys. I mean, different, of course, tribal types will, of course, have more overlap. The Germanic tribes, there's also a bit of overlap between some of the Nordic tribes, for example, Eastern, Western Roman Empire. But even then, they have units that sort of stand out more apart. So of course there's a little thing there to keep in mind as well. In terms of diplomacy, their sort of leaders are sort of playing to more it in theory. I'm just less sure if it actually sort of works out. I mean, for example, if I kill a king, the other one might be more likely, but still they'll sort of be affected by, the relations. And overall, I mean, they're not going to kill one king and all of a sudden the next one, might be more, happy to trade with you. So it's a bit more... It's better in a sense, I suppose, but it's, not really, hugely fleshed out yet. You do get some strength rankings, though. I'm a bit unsure what exactly it's, based on, to be honest. But it gives you, I suppose, a relative idea of where you stand in the world compared to your opponents. So I suppose it's pretty neat as well. Religion, of course, is always something to keep in mind of as well. Also, a little addition is, for example, there with the politics, I forgot to mention this, there'll be small events, where you have to sort of handle things out. For example, someone stole that guy's horse. What do you do? Or, you certainly got a lot of Christians under you. Do you want to kill them? Or, say, all right, you're cool enough. Those things, for example, also happen in this game. So, in that regard, there's a lot more to it. And again, the different armies are... different factions are all much different. I mean, if you play, for example, as the Ostrogoths first, then maybe play as the Eastern Roman Empire, of course, there's going to be a huge difference. Though, of course, it's not just going to be because how the armies play themselves, because, I mean, how they handle recruitment, of course, some build up and all that, that's quite different as well, just in the first place, but there's also a much more different challenge involved there. And you might ask, well, what could there be that's so different with them? Well, I'll just, pop open here and let's have a look at, the Western Roman Empire with its own bones. So for example, here we go. Control screen, for example, in this case explaining, urban battles. I certainly found myself fighting more of them, as of course I can just outright crush them easily. Just a bit there. Hang on. And there we go. Because the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire represent a much different challenge than in most other Total War games, at least as far as I'm aware, because you're basically holding a large chunk of Europe, a bit of Africa too, but overall you're holding the entire Western Roman Empire, and you're the one going to be attacked by tons of barbarians while trying to have everything, holding together moderately. And that, of course, presents a rather unique challenge. I mean, usually you sort of small group have to beat up the other guys and take the world. Here it's more like, well, I've already got half the world, now I'd just like to keep it. In fact, you start out as the strongest army, but of course, even if you are the strongest, the problem is you can't hold it all, because your armies are, well, still rather spread out. So again, there's a lot there to it, and I mean, I'm only playing as the Eastern Roman Empire, by the way. I've yet to sort of approach the Western, but I can tell you the Eastern Roman Empire, which has a lot more of a cozy situation, is certainly tough enough in its own right. Let alone the Western Empire, which also has a rather unique mechanic here in terms of technology. You start out with a lot more, but as you advance up here, you lose it. As you know, as religion takes over, reason is sort of lost there in the Dark Ages, and then that's also a bit more of a theme here of the new Total War games. Darkness. Technological wisdom, but also, combat. Cities burn, and they actually affect your troops as you fight through sort of an urban combat if you're the one defending. And that also, adds a lot more to the game. You also have to manage food, which actually is a huge thing I completely forgot. And, that one hurt me in my first playthrough as the Danes. All of a sudden, oh, hey, I'm lacking in food. Oh, hey, everybody's deserting, and my troops aren't getting replenished. This is kind of bad. So, there's a lot more to it again. It's really challenging. It's really, really fun. I mean, really, again, if I have to sort of, summarize Total War, it's good. It's a proper Total War game, which we should have had, ages ago, but now we're finally getting it. And personally, if you were to ask me for a recommendation, I would say, yes, if you like Total War, if you like the first one, well, not the first one, sort of Medieval 1, Medieval 2, if that's the sort of stuff you like, if the recent ones have sort of been boring to you, get Atilla. Get Atilla. It is most amusing. It is most fun, and it's certainly sucked me into it. I'm certainly quite enjoying it, and I'm certainly finding myself playing it again and again, trying out different things. And certainly I'm also sort of getting sucked into the game and sort of using different parts of it, which is not something, for example, I've done with some of the more recent games, which are partly because they were so bloody easy. You weren't even being challenged. But not Atilla. Atilla challenges you. Atilla hits you hard over the fingers if you don't pay attention. So in that regard, I do find Atilla to be a much fun game, very engrossing, and something, again, you can easily spend yourself hours playing on as the different factions and on different difficulty levels. And oh yeah, there's even standard changing key mine. Again, you know, I'm not the most sort of methodical review of this kind of game, at least not yet, but overall it's pretty damn good fun. And again, it is very much something I can recommend to any sort of Total War fan, again, or at least, you know, I'd think I could. So I think that rather covers it. I mean, again, great game, get it if you're into Total War. Even if you're sort of been a bit burned on the previous ones, this is infinitely better than the recent ones. Again, we're again talking back to the old days of the good Total War games here. Good stuff. So hopefully this should have gotten people, you know, a bit of an idea of what Total War is, the Atilla that is, got them interested. And if again, you know, go ahead and buy it. It's certainly got my recommendation, so if you trust me, you know, have at it. Or at least, you know, you're thinking about it in the future, you know, maybe get it on a, I don't know, a sale again, you know. You're probably not going to waste your money. So a little, well, comment there. So hopefully this has been enlightening. Hopefully this has given people an idea of the game, what it is about, and if it's something, you know, that might actually interest them. And if it is, you know, well, and again, if you do like it and, you know, end up buying it, you know, feel free to let me know in the comments, you know, thank me, and, you know, also thank the developers. So, guys, thank you all for watching, and again, hopefully this has been an enlightening video. Bye!